are faced with a big question of how do we actually tackle the new challenges that COVID-19, as a result of COVID-19, including a lack of cash flow, workforce retention, and pipeline uncertainty. So I just want to be clear on the focus of what we're going to cover over the next few weeks. Very much around planning, so what we can do and how we can use this time when we're in isolation to get our business into a better position to face the future. Secondly, I'd like to share some market insights that I'm seeing, so you've got as much up-to-date information as possible to help with your decision making. And thirdly, focus on how we can increase the effectiveness of project specification. So I've spoken to many of you around what we're seeing on EBOSS. Certainly after the first week of lockdown, we're seeing site traffic at around 70% of what we were experiencing end of February, beginning of March. So there's still a lot of work that architects are designing, and we should be confident that a large amount of that work will continue through the design phase. The big question will be, how does that translate into actual physical projects? So I'm going to cover off a bit of that today. What I won't be covering is things like government package around financial support, HR support and issues. This is very much around strategic planning, market insights, and that specifier focus. Okay, before we get going, let's have a look at your poll results. So first question was, when do we think lockdown will soften to allow a wider percentage of the building industry restart? 5 weeks seem to be the, actually while we get into that, I will just, we're all coming from our own office space, so I just want to say hi. This is what my office looks like, and if you can hear anything in the background, it'll be one of my 3 boys as they prepare whatever they're doing this afternoon. So excuses for any interruptions there. Anyway, back to where we were at. Great. So in terms of our poll, we can definitely see that there is a preference to the 5 weeks there, followed by 6 weeks, and then support still to the initial plan of 4 weeks. When we look at the type of work be prioritised, we can see that certainly government work, feels like we've got a high level of comfort. That will certainly be in the first wave, if there are waves of work released. High level of certainty around, in fact, the wider market will be released altogether. We can see support for healthcare, education, and aged care. So a good mix coming through. And then in terms of a regional bias, so 3 to 1, where yes, those areas that are healthier could well be seen to have work released earlier than other regions. Okay, thanks very much for that. I appreciate your insight. So we've got Q&A, we've got chat, and we also have got a raised hands option as well. So from time to time, I might just be asking for some feedback. So could I just get a few raised hands just to make sure that that's working? Great, thanks for that. Okay, let's move into this now. And Paul, thanks for your comment. Very industrial looking office. Yes, this is actually my wife's workshop. So she does a bit of woodworking, but not for the next 3 or 4 weeks as I take it over and sit here all day with my computer. Right, okay, so just want to set the scene, so just give you some update on the macro sort of management of the building industry. Today, I really want to focus around, are we prepared for a restart? What would that actually look like, and what's our level of preparedness for it? Then just want to go back to some fundamentals around, what does the building industry look like when we came into March? And I'm not sure if we'll cover this today or next Tuesday. Challenge to you all around where you should be focusing. So if we feel that the market is going to tighten and could tighten quite dramatically, what are the areas that we feel we've got the strongest chance of gaining and holding specification? And finally, we want to make sure that if we understand that target and focus, we're positioning ourselves as strongly as possible to provide the right level of service, the right product, the right solution to meet the specifier and builder's needs. Okay, great. So in terms of planning, what's become very evident is that when we think about three horizons, they become very condensed. Short term used to be, what are we doing over the next 2 months or quarter? But at the moment, we're week to week. So what are we planning for next week? So I want to spend a little bit of time focusing on that short term horizon. Then what is our plan for finishing off this level of isolation and moving into restart, and then the world on from there? So this week, cash. So as businesses, you need to make sure that we've got really good, strong financial management, and that we've got we've done the planning and the forecasting, to take us through different scenarios. Obviously, we need to manage staff. We need to set their expectations. At the same time, we still need to be providing a quality level of service to specifiers. And for many of us, that's dramatically changed. Like everyone, we've had to bundle up our office and work from home, and we're having to communicate with people now who are in isolation. So, we're doing things like these webinars, online meetings, more phone calls, live chat. We also need to be looking at documentation, our digital delivery of content. And then for builders, really thinking about, well, how are they operating at the moment if they are deemed to be essential services? And in the future, what extra information do we need to provide to make sure that our products will actually meet the expectation of what is done on site? So those are the types of things that we should be looking at as part of our planning in that short term. Moving forward, as we go into next month or two, again, focus on cash, these design services to specifiers. So again, taking full advantage of the specification work that's going on at the moment, because it's important that we've actually maintained that pipeline and we can follow those projects as they move through towards being procured. Cool. And further, just thinking about, what does our supply chain look like? And what level of comfort do we need to give builders, main contractors and subcontractors, in terms of our regional availability, our international supply chain, our level of fabrication, and what we can and can't do if there are various controls still in place? And, what about if we find it very difficult to get into practices and get onto sites in the near term? What level of guidance can we provide as restart occurs to ensure continuity of the installation and use of our products? And then finally, again, focused on financial performance, making sure that we have got the right staff structure to meet market demands, and looking at how that future is becoming clearer. So making sure that the goals that we have in place, that we're checking in and making sure that they are aligned with the market as it develops. Okay, so again, what I'm thinking about is how do we offer the right level of design support? What level of documentation are we providing, and how can that be improved if we've got some capacity at the moment? But importantly, how do we keep relevant? What does our communication program look like? So how do we continue to educate? We used to do that in practice. We used to do that through CPD presentations, where we'd be face-to-face, followed up by emails and phone calls. So how can we use digital tools? As I mentioned to a few of you, EBOSS is creating a video production service, so we can put 90-second to 120-second technical video clips together. We can record your reps over Zoom and overlay imagery and also bullet points to provide short, sharp snippets of technical education to keep specifiers and builders up to date. Okay, and then for builders, once restart occurs, thinking about how we can improve the handling and installation under new health guidelines with COVID-19, how we can continue to offer support even if we can't get access, we have reduced access to site. So these are what I've been thinking about in terms of putting this presentation together. Okay, so in terms of what the industry looks like, now I'm just going to check in here. I've got questions. No, we're all good. I think we're up to date on the chat. Okay. So if you've got any questions at any point, hit that Q&A and I'll keep an eye on that. Now, many of you will have seen some information about the response plan that's been put in place. I'm just providing a summary here as of the 5th of April. In fact, actually, there was a slight update on the 6th of April yesterday, so I've grabbed that information. At a very high level, we just need to check in on the accord that's in place. It's been in place for a while, but it's shifted its focus from transforming the construction industry into assisting with making us more resilient and helping us with recovery. So there's a steering group that's been put in place, thinking about how as an industry we can be best supported and ensure that a level of confidence is maintained during this period and as we come out of lockdown. They're providing guidance to government on how they can support the construction sector. And many of you will obviously be aware of the employee benefit scheme that's been put in place. Lots of talk about other financial support. I want to just concentrate on the 3 phases that they've identified. Phase 1 is, what are we doing right now? How do we maintain a sector that is in hibernation, the vast majority during the shutdown? What does the restart look like? How do we ensure that we can restart quickly? We don't splutter and into, first, second, third, fourth gear. We can accelerate quickly and we can bring projects on stream. Thirdly, what does transformation actually look like? So once we've actually got through the initial concerns, how do we actually get back to where we were initially looking at, which was high performance prior to COVID-19? Okay, I am just having a look at the Q&A here. John, I am struggling to see the Q&A. Team, I'm just going to stop sharing.
Got one question from Rob Reed. What restrictions to site do you believe we will face?
Great, Rob. Excellent question. If I can just hold you for a couple of minutes, I've got my own view on that. So I appreciate you asking that. And I'm just going to stop sharing my presentation here to bring up my Q&A. So just hold fire. Hi there again. Okay. Steve, what are your thoughts on the volume of work construction in terms of, I'm assuming we've got commercial construction and residential when the restart commences? Will we be 10, 20, 30% off traditional volumes? Steve, still too early to say, I think, but when we asked the question in our specified webinar on Thursday, the general consensus was we shouldn't expect anything worse than a 30% drop off. So that was as of Thursday last week. Let's see what happens, but I think we should be constantly asking ourselves that, and I'm keen to update you on that every week. Great. So Rob and Steve, thanks for your questions there. Okay. Let me just get back into here. Right, so today we're going to talk about restart. So ensuring the readiness of all of our companies to restart work and accelerate projects. Cool. Okay, so when we look at the MB guidelines, restart, what does that look like? It's when restrictions are lifted. So the industry's got to be in a good place to restart work while at the same time keeping the workforce safe. Now, health and safety has been a big part of our industry for the last decade, but it's been tweaked. So what have we learned and what that could look like from the essential service setup that's occurred over the last 2 weeks? Well, we need to be thinking about what type of work can be restarted at each of the levels, 4, 3, and 2, and provide guidelines for working safely, both in your own workplace, but also on site and in architectural practices, while COVID-19 still exists. Okay, so back to Rob's question of what does this actually mean for your business? What does it mean for builders and for architects? So I'm going to spend some time here and John and Sandy, I'm still struggling to see Q&A. So if you could just pop those through into the chat line, which I can see, that would be much appreciated. So the question I want to ask you all is, if you were given the opportunity to apply as an essential service, what state are you currently in? The lessons that we've seen from the last few weeks is that if you are seen as a low-risk, well-prepared business that has confidence in itself that it is essential, and that you are able to work under whatever level you are proposing to work under. So if I look at what we've learned over the last few weeks under level 4, so MPI have got a guideline in place that effectively requires you to create a checklist to demonstrate the safe environment that you can provide to your employees, and that you can provide the safe delivery of your product to customers. Now, let's just have a look at that a little further. I'm just thinking about your business at the moment. So first of all, there's over 50,000 companies in the wider building industry. So we can't wait for absolute guidance from the government as to when you as a company will be allowed to get in the market. Look, they may well open the entire market up all at once. I'm getting you thinking about a scenario where we might actually see a drip feed occur. And if that was to occur, that you're prepared to put yourselves at the front of the queue. These are my thoughts, and I'm trying to just get you thinking differently and using the next couple of weeks to prepare for this scenario if it does occur. So what are we doing to get ready now? And, do we back ourselves? So I'm hearing of suppliers who have been, have put themselves as a supplier under essential services. Now they've actually been trading to the likes of placemakers and Mitre 10 and Bunnings for 2 or 3 weeks before they were certified by MPI. Now, not saying we need to actually go out and break rules here, but there is a huge number of businesses that will look to come online quickly. And one of your strategies may well be we back ourselves to have procedures in place where we can maintain a safe workplace. So we've got things that we've restricted entry onto our office, onto our warehouse. We've got limited access. We've got cleaning stations as people enter and leave our facility. We can allow our staff to conduct themselves whilst maintaining a 2-metre distance. So how does that impact on your operational procedures? And we should be prepared that if MPI came in and talked to our staff, how would they respond as to their level of comfort? Do they believe you've done everything that you can to ensure that your workplace is safe and they feel safe returning back to their family? Because this is what companies have had to demonstrate to be when they've been audited by MPI and have been given approval to work under that essential services. So we've got to learn and understand what has in fact happened and prepare ourselves that may well be required as we enter out of lockdown. Okay, I'm just going to pause quickly and have a look at some of the chat line here. Paul, one issue will be how sites and installed products perform over the period. Oh, we haven't got back to on site. Okay, good. So imagine a scenario where a builder has to ensure that his staff are working in a safe environment. That'll mean that there is limited access onto the site, and they'll probably be pretty hesitant about letting suppliers come on board. And when subcontractors come on board, they will need to be inducted. They will need to ensure that there is a 2-metre distance separation at all time. Any close contact will need to be limited to 15 minutes. And there will be, disruption around, if we required 2 people to install an interior panel, and that's over 20 kilos. Well, how do we do that and maintain 2-metre distance? What's the planning? What guidance have they got from product suppliers to be able to enable that? And so we should find that there's a lot more project management than there has been in the past, and potentially there'll be some delays in how quickly work can be delivered. So I would think that we will have limited access to site because builders will just be thinking about reducing the exposure of their staff to the wider industry. Hope that answers your question. Okay, Simon, how do you think that companies can be maximising their employees' time while in shutdown? Simon, that's the whole purpose of the series. I'm going to get into some specifics a little bit later on. Thank you for that question. That's definitely where I'm coming from. And one issue is how sites and installed products perform over this period, i.e. timber frames put up, no roofing, and wet weather performance? Will there be a lot of remediation work first? How will manufacturers' warranties stand up? Hey, look, this is a great question, and something the insurers will be really keen on. If anyone has any information around insurance guidance on this, I'd be really interested. If we remember that essential services covered work to make building sites safe and secure. So there was a small provision there in terms of weather tightness. But so in terms of wider exposure, I think that the insurance company will be a big driver here. So I haven't actually seen anything come through yet, but let's see if we can be updated on that over the next couple of weeks. Okay, cool. Okay, Andy, I wonder if MB will provide a health card to go onto site, similar to SiteSafe, to show you and your company has approval to work during the different levels of lockdown. Andy, that's a great point. What we're hearing from MPI is that the companies who are operating under essential services they are displaying their procedures on entry to site, very well regarded. So when inspectors are coming, they're looking for your procedures, not on your front door, but actually at the front of your property. So at the moment, that'll be your own internal document, but we should expect that there will be checklists made available. I've actually got a link here to WorkSafe. So I encourage you all to go through that information there and challenge yourself around how prepared are you to get back into that restart quickly. Craig, question from you. One suggestion, with early engagement from builders, designers and their local BCAs, the artisan system could be a good way of forward in terms of building inspections on site. Craig, rather than learning about that now, we'll share that link with everyone in the presentation, so you can have a look at that. Great. Okay, it looks like we're all up to date. Cool. Oh, thanks, John. Thanks for sharing that link in the chat line. Okay. So, just want to come back here. So, what have the questions I've asked here? How ready are you as a business to restart? And the question is, if restart is on a limited basis, how can you put yourselves at the front of the queue to make sure that you're up and running and are prepared for MPI to come in straight away and audit your business to get you certified? Another question is, how can we actually help builders do that? Because the reality here is, yes, we want to chase specification, but the sooner builders are up and running, sooner they're buying our materials, the sooner we can invoice and hopefully be paid. So we need to be thinking about how we can use this time, back to Simon's question, how can we use this time effectively? How can we make sure that what we are delivering to site meets the expectations of builders? Should we be putting extra information on the products that we deliver? Maybe we should be putting the weight on our products, so it's really easy for builders to understand what they need to do. Should we have explicit instructions around how to handle that product? I spoke to a builder on Monday, and he said, look, at the moment, I'm going to the supermarket, and when I return, I'm taking all my clothes off, I'm washing them, and then I'm wiping down all of the products that I've just purchased with disinfectant before I put it away. And he said, do I need to bring that level of control to site? So we're going to have some pretty nervous people who are coming back to work. We need to give them a good level of assurance that we understand their concerns and that we are helping contribute to a very safe work environment for them, their staff, and their staff's family. Okay, so how are we looking for time? We've got about another 10 minutes, and I just want to quickly review where the industry was at the beginning of March. I'll have a little bit of homework for you at the end of this, based on what information we cover over the next 10 minutes. Okay, so this is still the most up-to-date pipeline that I can access, and talks about in 2020, the building industry is worth $43 billion. That was the forecast pre-COVID-19. It's made up of three main buckets: infrastructure, around 8 billion, commercial work, which has been termed in the media and at government level as vertical construction, and then the residential market. So 8 plus 9 plus 27 equals 43. So Steve asked earlier, what level of reduction could we expect? Well, this is the number that we were looking at. And I just want to quickly cover off those three main buckets. Horizontal infrastructure, bridges, roads, water, ports, currently makes up about 20% of total construction in New Zealand, worth around 8 billion. Now this, as a sector of the market, covers the least amount of companies and least amount of product suppliers. Lots of concrete, lots of steel. So the government has got a big focus here on getting some shovel-ready products. Many of you would have heard about Crown Infrastructure Partners, who are looking for projects greater than $10 million, which have a start date of less than 10 months and 6 months and less than 12 months. This is in play, and they're looking for tenders at the moment. So again, this relates to about 20% of the market. Moving on. Next, we come to what we typically term as commercial. It's been referred to in media as vertical construction. Again, this is around 20%, about $9 billion. So we're at record levels at the moment. This is dominated by private development. So yes, the government is looking at some shovel-ready projects here: schools, hospitals, community facilities, regional airports. They're looking for ideas from the industry, but this is dominated mainly by private development. And we've heard about the government thinking about how they can back up private development if we've got, uncertainty continues in the market. But by far the greatest, in fact, 60%, 26 billion, is the residential market, and this covers the most number of people and companies in New Zealand. Really, the market here is a focus on detached housing, so low density buildings, and medium density, so townhouses, terraced housing, and low rise apartments. Less than half of the companies involved in residential design have less than 10 people. So they're the most vulnerable. They're reliant on high cash flow, low margin, very low levels of working capital. Now, we are seeing a growing reliance on social housing, and kāinga ora, we should expect to get some developments out of the Accord over the next couple of weeks. But there is a real focus here of, how vulnerable is this part of the market, and where are the opportunities, where are the more defensible parts of the residential market that we should be relying on. Just before I go further, of Andrew, question here, Matt, should importers be planning now to increase or decrease, or keep the status quo of stock levels to service the industry when it's opened up? Andrew, what a great question. Yeah, look, I think as part of this forum and what we're all doing is we're trying to get a sense of where the industry is going to land when we come out of this. And, you know, that question really comes back to your business and its ability to fund working capital. You will probably find that you've got some delays in your supply chain if you're reliant on international suppliers. So you'd have to ride them pretty hard, I would have thought, to get some extended terms in terms of delivery. But we need to be really focused on measuring and managing projects from specification through tender and to delivery, because the smart companies will try and align stock levels with when those projects come on board. And, you know, we can expect some delays. I mentioned before that construction could take longer, you know, with so we need to figure that into our planning. But from what I'm hearing from majority of you is that stock is going to be a big issue, and you will be holding smaller levels of stock going forward than you were coming into this. John, question from you. Surely the convention centre would be a project ready to go ASAP. I've already had one practice building it, better than shovel ready. Sorry, they've already had one practice go at building it, better than shovel ready. John, look, I'm not up to date with where we're at with that, and where the insurers are, if they're still holding back progress. Why don't we, as a group, try and get some intel on that over the next few days? So when I come back next Tuesday, let's have on the agenda the you know, the Sky City Convention Centre. Okay. So when we look at residential construction, I'm not going to go through these points here. You can go through them in your own time. But when the residential market, we, you know, still 2/3 are detached housing. We've got growth in the apartment market, and the real growth story has really been in medium density. So as part of this series, I want you to start thinking about, if residential design is a big part of the work that you're focusing on, which category or segment of residential are you focusing on? And how does that align with your product offer? So how can you assist builders and architects to provide buildings that meet client and compliance requirements for medium density? So acoustics, fire, thermal performance. And how do we position them to both specifiers and the builders? We need to make sure that we have got an aligned service with the type of work that we're chasing. The reality is, over the last 5 years, majority of us have reacted to work inquiries. We have lessened our proactivity in the market. We should plan that the market going forward, we're going to need to be very proactive. There's still work available, but we are going to have to be much better at chasing it and at marketing ourselves to assist specifiers and builders. So, if you're focused on residential, what part of the market are you concentrating on, and how are you marketing your solutions to meet those requirements? Got a follow-up slide here in terms of regional work. So I think going forward, we will have to consider how strong our support levels are in different regions if we believe that the market is, or if the market does slow. I'm not going to cover that off now, but you've got the slide there which we'll share with you. Again, I've got some information about the most up-to-date building consents per annum per region. And finally, let's look at commercial construction. So I really like the segmentation of the commercial market. We'll have a look at this in a bit more detail next week around which of these categories or these segments we think will be the most resilient going forward. But again, if we have got solutions and we're targeting schoolwork, how are we positioning those products in our service offering, so that we're going to specifiers and saying, we understand that you're doing the schoolwork. This is the solution we've got that meets these specific project requirements. And finally, we have a look at the regional work as well. So that I'm going to leave it there. I am I'm at time. I can answer a few questions if you'd like to do that now. Otherwise, 1:30 next Tuesday, let's log in again, and I want to come back to this this planning deck. Quickly go over the different types of residential and commercial work. Talk about what areas we think will be more resilient. Share some up-to-date information, and the next step will be thinking about your service offer into the market. Okay. Right, I am going to stop sharing my screen. Cool. Okay, I've got a couple of questions here, and while I bring this up, I am going to just release a final poll. So when you do need to go, if you can just fill this out, and any feedback on what I have skipped over or could cover, please feel free to email me directly so we can cover that off, and I can extend that over the following sessions. Cool. All right, Brian, question from you. Could it be argued that there will be a surge of materials and products for projects, both residential and commercial, considering there could be a large number of projects put on hold? Equally, there could be a lull/dip once the initial surge has passed. Also, could a pending election also have an impact? Brian, really good questions there. Maybe we can continue to sort of come back to that over the next couple of weeks as we get higher levels of certainty. But I know a number of you are sitting on very high stock levels, predicting a very busy March, April, May, June. And so that there is levels of concern that your stock could be too high, and thoughts that we might see some really aggressive pricing in the market. So they're the initial concerns. I don't have a view on a dip in the supply chain, but certainly I would think that those of you who have really strong domestic supply chains would be heavily marketing that. Those of you who have real control over delivery, manufacture, fabrication of product and delivery to site, there you'll be communicating a really strong continuity of supply. So it's not that let's support New Zealand made because we want to support New Zealand businesses. I think that'll be part of it. It'll be more, we can give you certainty that product is going to be delivered when you need it. Right, back to Desiree. Given the death of the tourism industry, do you think it's a good proportion of the hotel projects will be postponed, canned altogether? Desiree, I think we'd be very surprised if there were tourism-focused projects that were in concept stage, that a number of them would be put on hold. There's a number of them, particularly in Auckland, that need to continue, but when we go over the commercial segments next week, we'll talk about hospitality and accommodation, because we should be thinking that they will be weaker going forward. There's a big recovery that's going to be required in that tourism sector. Richard, what impact do we see challenges regarding COVID-19 on the tourism sector will have on the construction sector? Hopefully that's been covered with Desiree's question. And from Rami, can lockdown trigger lowering housing prices, thus pushing builders to look for cost savings? Look, I think we should be ready to be able to react to QAs and project managers coming back and saying, can we have another look at this? We should have some options available, and rely on them to be able to come back to us as the incumbent supplier to be able to offer where we think that value can be saved. I think the opportunity for us is to be really clear around what do we, is there a way in which we can deliver value and cost savings without going to a cheaper product? So do we have the opportunity to be able to provide better service, better information around installation and training to ensure that builders are more efficient? In terms of lower house pricing, look, there's been talk about that in the market, and as our specified conference, we've got Nick Tuffley talking about that, and he'll have some drivers that he'll be commenting on around house pricing. So those of you who are attending specified will cover that off in a lot more detail next week. But we should, I'm happy to share any market forecasts around house pricing as they come to hand over the series. All right, team, that's us for now. I hope you enjoyed that. Any other feedback, please let me know. Have a good and productive week. Use this time in isolation to work on the planning for the business, and enjoy that extended time with your families. So be safe, and look forward to seeing you all again next Tuesday. Thanks very much.